Okay, so I'm doing a second special video today because I just went out to do some stuff. I just felt like, oh, I should go by I should go by Discover Mills and see what's over there. I just had one of those feelings like I get sometimes. Like you remember when I got this guy, when I got the Nightfall Batman. That was one of those things where I just feel like I should go to Target today. Well, today I just felt like I should go to Discover Mills. I was craving a cheesesteak from Charlie's, the old school cheesesteak with cheese whiz, and I get them to put some mushrooms on there, and they got some good caramelization on there, and everything was crispy and some parts tender and some other parts. Perfect cheesesteak. I couldn't ask for a better cheesesteak. But I don't think that's why God took me to Discover Mills today. Not just for that epic, excellent cheesesteak, but because of this. Oh yeah, I got the DC Multiverse Batman from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yeah, from Mcfarlane Toys, and I can't wait to get this guy open. I've been really excited about him since they announced him. The pre-orders sold out everywhere. I don't know how you sell it over pre-order, but they managed to do it. So, meanwhile, I still got like Robert Pattinson Batman figures cleaning around this place at like clearance prices. So, even at this place, like, they didn't have any actual Robert Pattinson figures left, but they had plenty of McFarlane figures of Catwoman and Penguin that had been marked down to like $10. So, anyway, I might go ahead and get one of those Penguin figures. I think I could probably customize it into a pretty good Harvey Bullock. Anyway, so let's go ahead and open them up. We can look at the back. It's a image from the poster. Other than that, this is a pretty standard McFarlane packaging design. So let's go ahead and open them up. And he's got a fabric cape. Oh, isn't he cool looking? Isn't he just so cool looking? So let's go ahead and take out the insert here so we can get out the trading card and the stand. And it looks like the trading card and the stand are on two separate bubbles, which I always prefer it when they're on the same bubble because that makes it easier for me. One less bubble to worry about peeling off. But I was able to get the trading card out fairly decently. It looks like there's a little bit of an error in the cut at the top corner there. That might look kind of like some foxing, but it's actually not foxing. It's like a little piece of cardboard that remains where it just didn't quite perforate right. So now let's get out the stand. And here we go. Pretty standard stand, what we usually get for these DC characters. And then he's got some accessories that we can go ahead and pull out. So first of all, we have the grappling hook gun, which has been a standard piece of equipment for Batman since 1989, when Michael Keaton had his grappling hook gun in the 1989 Batman movie. And pretty much every Batman's had their own distinct grappling hook gun since then. This is Ben Affleck's, and it does have like a kind of a similar look to the Keaton version, but it's not the same. And then two very large, thick batarangs, which I suppose Ben Affleck is a large, thick Batman. So now I know a lot of you Robert Pattinson Batman fans criticize Ben Affleck and say that he looks fat, but this is not fat. These are what we call muscles. Now, usually a superhero has these muscles, and that's what gives him his strength and allows him to fight bad guys. Now, I know you might be confused as Robert Pattinson fans because Robert Pattinson doesn't have any muscles, but Ben Affleck had a ton of muscle. That guy worked out and got in the best shape of his life, unlike Robert Pattinson, who didn't think it was worth working out when he was going to play Batman. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm just stating objective facts. Dude got cast as Batman and said, "Oh, I don't need to work out. That just makes part of the problem." Part of what problem? Actually looking like a superhero? Okay, loser. People wonder why I like Ben Affleck better. Ben Affleck got in the best shape of his life at like 50 years old. Robert Pattinson couldn't be bothered to lift a freaking kettleball. The trainer's begging him, please work out. He just looks like a complete wuss. Like a wet spaghetti noodle. Anyway, I got a much better Batman here. So I don't know, man. Like lately, people keep trying to tell me, "Oh, he's the most comic book accurate Batman," and I'm like, "What comic books are you reading? Please tell me so I can avoid them." Oh, there's more accessories in here I got to get out. So you've got 2 extra hands. So let me get those out. And man, those are taped in there good. I think I might actually have to cut the tape. So here we go. There we go. It wouldn't be an Alan Belk video if he didn't spend some time making fun of Robert Pattinson. So here we got the closed fists, and they both have the knuckles sculpted in. Unfortunately, they don't have any of the. I would have had like a little bit of brass detailing on there, but unfortunately, it doesn't have that. But I can fix that later myself. It'd be a pretty simple thing to do with a little bit of paint. Go ahead and get Affleck out of the package. Try not to get this cape caught on anything, since it is fabric. Now, Batman's cape in the movie did seem to have kind of a rough texture to it, like it was almost kind of raggedy because the guy had been through a lot of different fights. But that doesn't mean I want to get any more, sort of fraying on this as possible. So yeah, I already shot a video today where I covered that 12-inch Aquaman figure. And Aquapalooza is still going on, so if you missed that video, there's more Aquapalooza that I put up. But I found this guy at the store today, and it's like I just had to open him up. I just had to, because I've been looking forward to this figure since it was announced, and I was really excited to find it. And he's got this fabric cape. Seems like more figures have been coming with fabric capes lately. It's the same type of fabric as Supergirl that I opened up recently. I don't know if you can get it, but there's like this texture to the inside of it that's almost like a sports jersey. The fabric itself is pretty similar, but not identical to what the old Superpowers capes were made out of. Maybe it's one of those things where it's just like the closest they could. But I always like figures with fabric capes because you can get it to flow, and when you're a kid playing with it, you can kind of let the cape drape over your hand like that, and kind of play with the cape that way. Whereas I kind of feel like with the plastic capes, a kid kind of has to put their hand around the plastic case. It's a little more awkward to grip. But man, we got a great likeness of Ben Affleck there. Looks awesome. A lot of good detail to the suit. Like this was a suit that had like a lot of details in it. First of all, you had this kind of surface detail to it with like the texture of the fabric and the wrinkles and everything like this. They did try to make this look like it was made out of like, maybe some kind of like Kevlar lined fabric, but it still looked like fabric to me. You got the Batman emblem, that Ben Affleck style Batman emblem, based very much on the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns comic. And you can see that there's not only the texture to it, but there's also all kinds of like little nicks and such. Man, my phone is doing this weird thing while I'm trying to get it to focus. So I think that's because the screen is cracked, but I need to get a new phone soon. But great head sculpt on that. Lots of cool details to the outfit. There's lots of dry brushing, like it's molded in what looks like to me like a lighter gray plastic with like some darker gray kind of brushed over it. On the back, there's not quite as much brushing, so you can see that lighter gray plastic that I'm talking about. I guess they only figured, why bother with the back, because the cape's just going to cover it up anyway. Go ahead and just put all the effort into the front of the figure and make him look really cool. And he is a beast. I don't have the George Clooney Batman over here to compare, but I do have Chris O'Donnell Robin, so we can see what those two look like together. And he's about maybe about a quarter of an inch taller than Chris O'Donnell, a lot bulkier. I'll go ahead and grab George Clooney real quick. We'll go ahead and do that. Just talk amongst yourselves for just a moment. We get that George Clooney. All right. So George Clooney does have one of those molded rubber capes, like I was talking about. So like a kid has to kind of grip their hand around it or something. I don't know. Like it doesn't. Obviously, these aren't really made for kids to play with, but you see what I'm talking about. It wouldn't be as easy for a kid to play with this. But like Clooney's costume, I thought was actually pretty decent. Even with the nipples, it's still one of the better Batman suits, I think. But yeah, look at Affleck next to him. He just he's like, I want to say that Clooney is like not quite as tall as Affleck in real life anyway. But you can see that like he's Clooney's a bit more lean, even with all that molded rubber muscle, and Affleck is just gonna crush it. And if I had a Robert Pattinson Batman figure, which I don't because I refuse to own one, you would see that he would just be a pipsqueak next to this guy. So yeah, this is for my money the most accurate live action Batman suit that we've had to the comic books, and it is specifically based on The Dark Knight Returns. So maybe you might prefer a different comic book version of Batman. I know I personally am more of a fan of the Neil Adams interpretation of Batman than the Frank Miller interpretation of Batman, but I can't complain about Frank Miller because Frank Miller's still pretty awesome. He's just not quite as awesome as Neil Adams, if I'm going to be snobby about it. So let's go ahead and have a look at his articulation. So he looks up about that far, so that's a great range of articulation as far as looking up. Looks down about that far, so got a pretty good range of articulation there. Head can kind of quizzically tilt from side to side. This Batman cowl that they made for this movie was a masterwork of engineering, and they got him so like, obviously not the same range of motion you would have if you weren't wearing a Batman cowl, but they did get it to so he could turn his head with it being somewhat seamless, and he didn't need this goofy Dracula collar to hide his bobbleneck, this little pencil neck with his bobblehead. So he actually like had a proper Batman cowl and actually could turn his head. But as I'm always fond of pointing out, Batman doesn't have to turn his head. He's got, just hear you sneaking up behind him, doesn't really matter. So great range of articulation on the head. The arms, of course, rotate all the way around. It's not an action figure if the arms don't rotate all the way around and if the legs don't move. So at the very least, I want to be able to move the arms and move the legs. So legs move up, or I'm sorry, arms move up about that far. Not the best range of motion, but not the worst either. I think actually this one, what happened is the butterfly joint got caught underneath the cape, and I think that's what's causing that. So there we go. So pretty good range of motion for the arms. Can't complain about that. Butterfly joints do move backwards and forwards, so arms can move forward about that far. Arms can move backwards about that far. Good range of motion on those butterfly joints. He does have the double jointed elbows and has a really good range of motion at the elbows if his cape would get out of the way and stop trying to hide that. So, much like with the knuckles, it looks like he does not have the brass detailing at the edges of the bat fins, which would be nice, but of course I can fix that myself. I've got paint. I can do it. It's not a difficult thing to do at all. So then he has the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, so you can move those wrists any way, which way you want. He's got the cool Mcfarlane torso articulation, so we can get him into any kind of dramatic pose at the torso that we want to. Lots of cool potential things you could do with that. Have him hanging off of his bat rope. That would look pretty cool. Like that. Whoosh! Swings into the camera. So legs move up about that far. Not the best range of motion that I've seen on a leg on a Mcfarlane figure. Of course, the rubber trunks do kind of hinder it somewhat. I think that the where the trunks are cut at the crotch here, it does seem like they're a little bit low, and they could have maybe cut those trunks a little bit higher, and that probably would have given you a little more range of motion. If this were a figure that had black trunks on it, it would make sense to me that they would make the trunks a little larger. But since this is supposed to be an all gray suit, I think they could have maybe had the trunks ride a little higher and it wouldn't have hurt anything. So he does have double jointed knees, and there's a great range of motion at the knees. You can see here again, there's where the lighter plastic is and how they got the darker gray paint kind of dry brushed over it. Man, that's a pretty cool pose there. Like, you can imagine them leaping down or whatever, leaping into action. Lots of cool things you can do with the articulation on these guys. I love the articulation on the Mcfarlane figures. No boot cut. Boot doesn't swivel. But we do have the cool Mcfarlane rocker ankles, so you can move his ankles like any which way. So he doesn't really need a boot cut. And then, of course, to show off, we got the toe articulation. And honestly, the toe section of his shoe is so short. Like, I don't know if you can make this out on the camera, but like that's where the joint ends. So it's like it almost does nothing to tilt his toe up. It's like, it's just so short. How small are his feet? Let's see. We'll compare with the George Clooney Batman, and they are actually about the same size. It's not so much that his feet are small, it's that they're just thick, and it makes them look kind of clunky, whereas, you know, his are a little thinner, so it makes them look a little longer. So it's cool to have like both of these versions of Batman who are both so completely different. You can see everything that they have in common, and they're both obviously recognizable as Batman, but there's just so many differences between. It's fascinating to me to compare, and they both answer a lot of questions in different ways. So and it's funny to me that, like, in terms of tone, this is definitely the lighter version of Batman, but in terms of like visual, this is the lighter version of Batman. The one that's got the darker personality has the gray suit, and maybe that's kind of fitting because he's a little more of a morally gray version of the character. Like, this is a Batman that's kind of a fallen Batman, and his arc in the movie is a redemptive arc. It's a Batman who has kind of forgotten what it was like to be Batman and is starting to come back to being what Batman is and was always supposed to be. So to me, that's kind of one of the more fascinating aspects of this particular iteration of the character and what makes him one of my favorites. Now, on the other hand, the Clooney version of Batman, despite any flaws that you might feel that movie has, George Clooney's Batman, at the end of the day, you have to say it, he was probably one of the more noble and heroic versions of the character. And that was something that, like, I think, like, Joel Schumacher actually did a better job of than pretty much any other filmmaker that's worked on Batman in the modern era. It's making Batman that sort of like noble, heroic kind of character. And maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you prefer a Batman that's a little darker and a little more brutal. I know a lot of people do. But for me personally, I like the fact that we had this kind of darker, more brutal version of Batman who eventually realizes that, no, I've gone down a different path. This is not the path that I need to be going down, and makes an effort to go back to being that more heroic and noble version of Batman. It's Batman's doing things in this movie like branding criminals, and it's not like the criminals didn't deserve it. They're bad dudes, like the worst kind of criminals. But Batman shouldn't really be the guy that's meting out that kind of justice. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where like Batman realizes that throughout the course of the movie. And when he confronts Lex Luthor in his jail cell, and he punches the wall and leaves the Bat brand in the wall and refuses to leave the mark on Luthor himself, I think that's where we start to see him really become that Batman again. When he spares Lex Luthor, who probably deserves death more than any other villain that Batman's ever faced at this point, and he grants him mercy instead. I guess he would probably wind up regretting it later because Luthor broke out of jail, but hopefully we'll get to see that story finished at some point. Hopefully Netflix will pick it up, like the rumors been going around, and people have been trying to encourage Netflix to get the rights to produce the Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2. And if Warner Brothers doesn't want to do it, hey, I say let Netflix do it. Let Warner Brothers do their own thing with James Gunn, whatever they want to do. Who cares? Like, just bring back Ben Affleck for and Henry Cavill and have them do their thing over at Netflix. I would love to see that. I will say this for James Gunn is that, like, the Batman movie that he's making is probably about the only one I'm actually kind of looking forward to out of the stuff that he's doing. That's the only one I'm really excited about, because it does look like it's going to be based off the Grant Morrison Batman comics, which I really enjoyed, and it can't possibly be any worse than the Robert Pattinson one, right? Right? I guess we'll see. Anyway, at least I got a really cool Ben Affleck Batman action figure now, so I'm really happy to have this as part of my collection. He's going to be one of my favorites. I don't know if he's going to top this guy, because, you know, I love my Bronze Age, my blue and gray. You know, I love that classic Batman, but Ben Affleck's really cool too, so I'm happy to have this version of my collection. So I hope you enjoyed this special extra episode. I don't often do more than one episode in one day, but like I just had to get this guy out of the box. I couldn't resist. Oh, we still gotta do the accessories. I almost forgot. So let's go ahead and put the accessories in his hand. So here he is with the grapple gun. Let's go ahead and get him like aiming the grapple gun up so that he can climb up a building. So that does look really cool. I really like that. And let's go ahead and get him with the Batarang. And the Batarang's nice and thick, so I should be able to grip that pretty tightly. So there he is with the Batarang. Nice hurling of the Batarang kind of pose. Very cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I definitely enjoyed opening this guy up. I'm glad to finally have him in my collection. Mcfarlane, you guys outdid yourselves with this one. Excellent figure. The only thing is, like, I kind of feel like the butterfly joints, like the actual joints themselves, could have fit a little more deeply into the sockets, because that is giving him a little bit of a problem with the arm movements. But the sculpting, the articulation, everything about this figure is great, and I love it. So if you want to make sure you catch the next episode, I'm going to be getting right back onto Aquapalooza. We got interrupted from it, but we've got one more figure coming for Aquapalooza, which is the Superpowers Aquaman. And if you want to make sure you catch that, please make sure that you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure, what you think about Batman, what you think about Ben Affleck as Batman, what you think about the character in general. We've got more superpowers coming up after the Aquaman superpowers. And I've also got, you can see behind me, I got this Flash Gordon figure. And if you can make out what character it is, you know who it is. But, you know, I love Flash Gordon, and I'm excited to have this character finally. So that's pretty much it for this episode. We will talk to you next time. Bye.